All right, y'all. Good evening. Good evening. We are back and ready, right, for another Math Mindset Reset this evening. First, let me say this. I've been really excited that I've been getting a lot more conversation. People are curious enough about not just using AI, but using AI in math class that they're asking questions, right? I have been getting some DMs, some inboxes. So please do continue to ask the questions, right? I can answer them here, answer them directly with you, but we definitely also have the webinar coming up at the end of the month specific to AI in math, especially regarding questions, because we know questioning is really what drives learning in math class. So super, super excited. Again, that I always mess with people say, don't lurk, say something, right? So that people are motivated enough to say something and to ask their questions. That's always a good deal. Good evening again. Thank y'all so much for joining. So this evening, again, we're talking about, yes, AI in math class, right? Surprise, surprise, but how AI can help teachers ask better questions. So you'll have some very specific insights um, for how to make sure AI is enhancing the questioning techniques. We're addressing educator concerns, right? We did have a whole live that talked about navigating some of the fears and concerns about AI, but we're going to talk about a couple of them, a couple pieces of them as well. And if you missed that live and you're especially sitting with some fear, some uncertainty, a lot of questions were answered, a lot of research was looked at, and we had a good conversation. We really did. So, the first thing, if we're talking about questioning again, we know a few different things can happen when we ask a question in class, right? We might get absolute crickets, we might get silence. We might have some students that immediately everyone starts looking down and they're thinking to themselves, if I don't make eye contact, then she won't call me, right? So sometimes students will give a shoulder shrug, just blurt out anything, all kinds of things. There's all kind of possibilities when we ask a question. But we're talking about specifically how AI can help us craft, because we know questioning is an art. So AI can help us craft better questions, ones that we want to be sure spark critical thinking and creative thinking, right? I often put those two together, creative and critical thinking, engage every learner and save teachers some time, because if teachers are constantly challenged to do differentiating, to meet every learner where they are, that takes time to do. My first question to you all listening, y'all, when you hear meet every learner, what does that mean to you? When you hear every learner, what are some words or some phrases that come to mind? We're engaging every learner. We're meeting every learner where they are. What are some words or some phrases that come to mind for you? All right, especially with it being testing season, what is on your mind, right? A lot of the state tests, we're counting down within this month and next month. Most of the country, most of the US will have taken their test, their end of the year or state test. Yeah, for a lot of people, when they hear every learner, you might think about different groups of students. It might be some struggling students, maybe the students that are advanced. How often do we also think about maybe the English language learners? Do we think about the different learning styles, the kids that are visual, the kids that are auditory, right? They really catch and remember what you said and they're going to call you on it. Or the tactile, kinesthetic young people that have to do it. So we're talking about different learners. No, we're not just talking about um, ethnic groupings. We're not just talking about language proficiencies, even though that has its own tiers too, huh? We like to say English language learners, but we know that there's tiers inside of that. Do y'all know that? Right? So many things. So when we're talking about every learner and making sure we can do this efficiently, that's one of the ways, like the high view level of how AI helps, because it helps to plan for every learner very specifically, but very efficiently. That's the high point overview right there. That's it. So, if we're also focusing on how AI is helping to ask these better questions, I want to know your opinion again. What do you think, either your biggest struggle, or what do you think is the biggest struggle in general with questioning? So, questioning in the classroom, questioning at home. Do you think the biggest challenge is more so? And I'll give you some colors. We can color code this one. Green, if you think it's student engagement, students not really responding. Do you think the biggest challenge with questioning is blue, the time to plan for effective questions? Do you think it's yellow, differentiating? We talk about meeting everybody, all the needs for all the people. Red, just knowing the best questions to ask. So I'll give you the colors again. I want you to chime in the chat. Your opinion, right? We're talking, we're having a conversation. I'll go backwards. Do you think the biggest challenge with questioning is red, knowing the best questions to ask? Yellow, differentiating, being able to make sure each learner's needs are met, all of them. Blue, the time to plan effective questions. Or green, just getting students to answer, period. Which one do you think might be the biggest challenge? Think about it. Let me know. So you can type the you can type the phrase or you can type the color, either one. All right, y'all. A lot of time when I have this conversation, people do say differentiating, right? Can you imagine that? So think about, especially parents. If I have parents on here too, that maybe you have three kids and you know how you learn that each kid is different. So knowing to how to interact, how to discipline, how to communicate with each of those kids requires its own focus and time to really consider that and plan for it. So then, okay, let's take the three kids and turn it into a classroom of 25. If you're elementary from like third grade or below, but if you're secondary, middle school, high school, we're going to turn your three kids into 150 kids. So usually people talk about the differentiation and the time, right? Just the timing, because you want to do your best, of course. I don't know anybody that's like, nope, I don't want to do my best. I don't want to be my best. Everyone has that desire. Right now, the way it comes out, a lot of factors impact it. The timing, right? Maybe the student needs, because it can be demanding. But again, AI can help with this. A lot of people do say, you know what, it has to be the timing, that and the combination of knowing the best questions to ask. Y'all, any of these could easily be the top challenge. Any of these really could. They really could. So while we're talking about these, we've talked a number of times. I'm going to say a few, but no, it's been more than a few. We've talked a number of times about just the evolution of questioning, right? Traditional questions, something as simple as, straightforward as, only requiring calculations. What's the answer to 4 times 5? What is 4 times 5? And we said we can't leave the question there. We can barely ask that question at this point because the students don't see that. The young people do not see this. We can ask questions that cause them to reflect more on the process. Like, can you explain why we would multiply here? Why is that reasonable? What made, is there a clue word or phrase that help you focus on, I think we're going to multiply? So all of this shifts, again, the attention away from what answer did you get to critical thinking, creative thinking. You all, these topics are ever on my mind. There was a young lady I was working with, met her last week. It was one of her first sessions. Literally had to call time out. I was very, very concerned just about her anxiety that she was carrying. Like, she literally started to quicken her breathing when she wasn't sure what the next step was going to be, or if she wasn't sure if the answer was correct, right? So to mess with her a little bit, I was like, okay, time out, time out. I said, tell me what's going on. Like, what's wrong? What's wrong? I don't know what's next. And I might make a mistake. I said, so, and it just really stunned her. You could see she was like, so. I said, no, really. Like, so Let's talk about what happened, right? When we make a mistake. When we make mistakes, that's your chance, your opportunity to learn, to grow. I said, now we could say and stay in this moment of, oh no, I made a mistake. I said, but the growing up, the maturity part, the growth part is what happens when I make a mistake. Do I stop to reflect to see what it was, how I made the mistake, and how I can make an adjustment for that next time? I said, that's the big deal. I said, because you getting this question correct or incorrect is not as big of a deal as you understanding the process, because some of her anxiety, which we talked about, people mistaking speed for mastery. She wanted to get the answer quick. I said, nope, let me take that off your plate too. Right? I said, someone that took their time, they can explain their process, right? And maybe they had a slight miscalculation versus the person that did things quickly, but they didn't have it together at all. I said, we live in a world, we're talking about AI, we live in a world where tech helps us do things faster. So we need the humans to understand the process. It's not just about yes or no, did you get the right answer? I said, I need you to understand what's going on, because again, sometimes the tech is not always correct. And if there's an adjustment to make, I need you, the human, to know how to fix the adjustment, or how to adjust to fix the error, right? I mean, it was a very serious conversation. Like the set, I called timeout on the session. I was like, pause this equation, right? We're working two-step equations. Pause this. Let's talk. And this was our first session. I said we have to set the tone, right, just from jump. But again, the anxiety she was carrying with that, in terms of, did I get the question correct? Just answer, answer getting. And she was not thinking about her process at all. She was not using what she already knew to make her connections to apply it to new information. She was just focused on that answer. And I was like, we're not doing that. Basically, we're not doing that. So shifting away from that, AI can help with making sure students get more used to open-ended questions, right? AI can generate open-ended questions. Because if we're asking, what is the answer to 4 times 5 versus, can you explain why multiplication works here? What's another way we could solve this problem, right? Again, it's a lot of things that's helping with the efficiency and the multiple exposures, we call it, different angles, different perspectives to look at the question. So not just open-ended math prompts, but also the scaffolding. If this young lady was not understanding the steps and she was not understanding how to continue to solve this equation, then okay, scaffolding means we back it up, like we build a bridge. If I need her to get here, then we rewind and think back, okay, what are a couple layers of math that we might need to review? We might need to reflect. Sometimes that's difficult to do in general, let alone student by student. So AI helps with that. It can help generate, right? If this is what you see happening, or this is the type of answer you're getting, then these can be some of the prerequisites. So imagine the power of, not just, because sometimes you kind of know, right? Some of the misconceptions, the errors young people might have in their thoughts. Sometimes we know, but we may not know all of them. One thing that AI is famous for is that it's able to research and analyze data quickly, right? So it can help with that. So after we scaffold with the questions, remember we had a whole live last week talking about, when students do answer, what is our answer after that, right? So we're talking about analyzing student responses to know where to go next. So we talked about a lot of this, where, okay, depending on if it's an incomplete answer, what question do you ask next? If it's a correct answer, what's next? What if it's absolutely wrong? Then what? Or no response. So we talked about all of that last week, and we were very specific about how AI can help with that. What we call with the, not just the scaffolding, but making sure that the response question directly matches what the student response was, because it can do it quickly, slash it could generate a list for you so you're ready to go. So basic question again, what is 3/4 plus 5/8? If we want to make sure students are understanding more concepts, yeah, you can train your AI to focus on more concept-based questions. So that's when you might have a question that AI generates instead of what is 3/4 plus 3/5 or 3/8, right? So what do we need common denominators for if we're going to add fractions? Why do we need common denominators? That's focusing more on the process, more on the concept. Slash, if we want them to get more creative, I told you critical thinking and creative thinking go together, right? They have to be combined. So then from there, maybe you've also trained your AI to write creative based questions. So write a real world problem where someone needs to add the 3/4 and the 3/8. So do y'all see the difference in the shift? That it's not just computation, calculation based, where we move to conceptual thinking, right? Again, about the process, evaluating the system, where we might see this in the real world, making connections. It's definitely a shift. Let's see, someone said, great example from your actual session of both the academic and the SEL, her anxiety. Yes, there were a lot of layers. She definitely had math anxiety. And like literally this session, y'all, so again, a lot of my sessions is, it directly motivates some of the conversation because we want to make sure people are recognizing the SEL moments in math class and know what to do about them. Because if we're not careful, like I said, that young lady, she had learned that it was about getting the right answer. And she had also learned that speed equals mastery. If I can do this quickly, then I got it. They'll know I'm smart. And so I had to tell her more that no, we focus on the process. That's how we know you understand. If you understand the process and you can recognize when to use it, that's the big deal. That's it. And it was definitely a shift. It's a gradual shift. We're still working on it. But session 2, she was much better. She was much more relaxed, much more okay with if she didn't know what was next and trying to reflect on previous examples and things we had done to get there. So she's getting there. I'll keep y'all updated. Another way that AI helps with better questioning is again the scaffold. So I cannot stress enough that the reality is, and educators back me up, parents, you all know that sometimes it's something you want your young person to learn. Like you have the end goal, in mind, you're aware of the end goal, but the reality is you're like, okay, my child is here, my student is here. How do I get them where they need to be? That's the scaffolding. So like at home, you might build in certain experiences to make sure they're learning the skills necessary to get to that step. Same kind of thing, math class. We're building certain experiences and asking certain questions to scaffold up to where they need to be. So it might be something as simple as, okay, so what visuals can we make to model 3/4? Right? What are some ways we can eliminate when a model does not represent 3/4? What patterns do we notice when we're adding fractions with different denominators? So just having them again is more conceptual and maybe adding visuals. Because again, you can train your AI if you know that you have a certain percentage of students that they're maybe learning English. You have a certain number of students that have been struggling. Maybe you can be specific. There may be 2 grade levels underneath. So we need to pick up, they're in 5th grade, but we need to pick up some of these 3rd grade skills. So this is what we're working on now on their grade level. What are some of the experiences we may need to build in along the way to get them there, to help build in the experiences? Again, these are things that great educators have been doing largely in their brains on their own. And that's why educators are taking home papers day in and day out if they're not careful. It's taking a lot to grade. It's taking a lot to do updates. It's taking a lot of time to differentiate. And time is like the biggest thing that educators fight for in the classroom. So again, this is just a way to enhance because you're still using all of your human knowledge, critical thinking, creativity, your expertise, but you're feeding it to your AI so you can train it, so you can ask even better questions, create even better experiences for your young people in math class. All right. Because you're recognizing the situations, and now you have almost like a playbook. You have some go-to moves to do. Because when you see this, oh, yeah, I know to do this, right? I need them here. They're here. We built the bridge to get there. We built some plays. We have some moves. All right, y'all let me know if this is making sense. Let me know if this is making sense to y'all. Because again, I think this is really where AI shines, but a lot of people miss this opportunity, right? To truly recognize and meet students where they are and build them up. Again, a lot of people are not understanding and not perceiving AI in that way. We might be used to, okay, well, AI just kind of lets us know what grade level they're on. But okay, but we know we need them to be at this eighth grade level. And right now it's a little more six-ish in the fifth grade year. Now what? Okay, there's very specific things to do. There's a very specific order. There's very specific activities where you get the most impact, right? Where one activity can incorporate three different skills they need. And guess who can help with that? Save you some time. Your thinking partner, AI. Okay. Yeah, another thing, and I can't say it enough, feedback. The main thing about the feedback, not just that it's personalized and specific to the young people, but that it is happening quickly. The power of immediate feedback is invaluable. Invaluable, right? So thinking about, someone said AI is a whole assistant. Yes. An assistant should be your thinking partner while you're drafting your questions, while you're planning with their end products, right? What their projects are going to be, just the different things they need to show you and how to show you. AI should be your thinking partner. It should be. Y'all, what I want to do is I want to make sure that I invite you all to register for our AI powered assessment toolkit, right? That's coming up. We're kind of in the pre launch phase right now because it'll be released. And listen, I was going to say, my graphic artist and good friend and consultant, Tangeray, is on the line, y'all. And so, listen, she's putting that tan touch on it. And we're so proud and so excited. And y'all are going to see the goodness. But before that, we have a webinar. So this was a quick conversation, right? The webinar, we're getting very deep into AI and math class, especially for questions. But we know that question is just the heart, right? Everything else branches, everything else regarding learning branches from there. So you want to make sure you're a part of this. You do not want to miss this. It is on April 27th at 6, so same time, and we'll just meet on Zoom that day. Make sure that you register using the link in the bio so you can have all of the information. All right. But you do not want to, because again, the conversation, you're going to have some very specific strategies because we're talking about, how can I use it? We're going to see, you'll see the models. You'll see, okay, this is where we started. This is when we trained our AI to do this step. And this was the final result. Okay. From there, you also, again, you have some access to some bonus things, some 10 critical questions that all math teachers should be asking, just questions to ask to make sure that you're sparking creativity. We have an AI quick start resource guide for math class, because the reality is we have to teach. Listen, tell them, I'm going to tell the truth. Some of us are going to have to teach ourselves how to be very responsible and ethical using AI, but we definitely have to teach the young people. So think about like when the internet first came out or when Wikipedia first came out, right? We had to teach people how to really prove that a source was reliable, right? Certain criteria to validate things. So all of this is part of the conversation, part of the webinar experience, and it just continues to build when you make sure you sign up and are ready for the AI powered assessment toolkit. It's just all good things, y'all. It's just layers, just making sure you have what you need so we can benefit from this, right? So you can benefit and be ready and truly understand, be confident about it. Not just benefit like, okay, I'm doing it, I'm saving some time, but be confident about it and truly understand and leverage it for the Swiss Army knife that it is. And if you don't know what I mean, what I'm talking about, it being a Swiss Army knife, I'll see you next week and we'll talk about it some more. Haha. All right, y'all. See y'all later. Bye bye. Thank you.